So, greetings for the day. My name is Mohammad Rahmat Ali. So, we'll be dealing with the subject computer networking. So, with the reference to the last session, we studied about the different routing algorithms, which include shortest path first, flooding algorithm, and optimality principle. So, we'll continue our session with the next routing algorithm, which is distance vector routing. Now, what is distance vector routing? Distance vector routing is an algorithm which uses a local table or local routing table to assess the information, to route the packets, to route the data, and to pass on the packets of information from one router to another router. So, we will study the mechanism of how distance vector routing works and what are the different things which are been involved in distance vector routing and what makes distance vector routing different from the previous three algorithms. Now, coming directly into what distance vector routing is, in distance vector routing, the least cost route between any two nodes is the route with minimum distance. Okay, like as we have seen in the shortest path, wherein the router will take the shortest path between the two routers. In the same way, what distance vector routing does is that it also does the same thing but in a different way. It does it in a different way. What it does in this protocol, as the name implies, each node maintains a vector or table to minimize or to minimum the distance to every node. Okay. Now, what are the three things involved in that? The three things which are involved in that is this: initialization of the routers, sharing of the data or sharing of the vector resources, and updating the tables and resources time to time so that the distance can be maintained efficiently and effectively. Or else, if I can say, like your Google Map will always tell you the shortest distance and the alternate distance. It depends on you which of the route that you take. It depends on you that which of the route you take for an efficient, smooth, what you call as delivery of the packets or delivery of the information from one router to another router or from one network to another network. Now, what all of these three things, initialization, sharing and updating, we are going to see it now. Now, initialization in a sense, let me consider this is a network of routers which are being interconnected with one another, like A, B, C, D and E. So, and it has its cost, like from the distance from A to D is 3, the distance from A to B is 5, the distance from A to C is 2, the distance between B and C is 4, the distance between C and E is 4, and also the difference between B and E is 3. So, this is the cost of the what you call as the packets to be transferred from one router to another router. So, this is the cost of traveling or passing the information from one router to another router. So, what it does actually is, like, when it comes to initialization, what it does is, like, from node A, it will calculate the distance from node A to another nodes or from other routers. From router A, it will calculate the distance from other routers. If you consider this table called A to cost next, in the sense from router A, what is the cost? What is the cost from A to A? See, if you consider this table, this is the table for A, in which this is the router, this is the source and the destination. Okay. Now, from router A to A, what is the cost? The cost is 0. Traveling from A to A, the cost is always 0. Now, from router A to B, what is the cost? The cost is 5. In the same way, the distance between A and C and the cost from A and C is 2. So, we have written here 2. And the cost from A to D is 3. So, we have written here as 3. and also the cost from A to E. It means there is no direct connection from A to E. So we write it as infinite. Why? Because there is no direct route connection between A and E. So that's the reason we are writing A to E as infinite. A to E as infinite. In the same way, considering B table. So how B table is been constructed? The distance from B to A. What is the distance from B to A? It is 5. The distance between B to B is 0. The distance between B to C is 4. The distance between B to C is 4. What is the distance between B to D? B is here and D is here. There is no direct connection. So we wrote it as infinite. We wrote it as infinite. And the next one is B to E. B to E. So what is the distance between B to E? The distance between B to E is 3. So in this way we constructed the table for A. We constructed the table for B. Now coming towards the table C. Coming towards table C. So the distance between A to C is 2, or C to A is 2. The distance between C to B is 4. Here it is 4. The distance between C to C is 0. The distance between C to D, C and D is not connected, so we wrote it as infinite. And also the distance between C to E is 4, so we wrote it as C. So in the same way, in the similar way, we will construct the table for D as well as for E. Now this process is called as initialization of the tables or initialization of the routers with reference to the tables, or constructing a router table with reference to the local nodes, with reference to the local nodes. So what it actually does is, like, what it says, each node can know only the distance between itself and its immediate neighborhoods or its immediate neighbors, those directly connected to it. So for the movement, we assume that each node can send a message to the immediate neighbor and find the distance between itself and these neighbors. Below figure shows the initial table for each node. The distance for any entry is that is not a neighbor is marked as infinite or unreachable. Like what I have said you, the distance between each of the node which are directly connected, which are the neighbors in the sense which are directly connected, we will write the initial cost for that and we will construct a local table. We will construct a local table. So this is the first step in which we are initializing the router tables, or we are initializing the things. Now coming towards the second thing, that is sharing. Now what is sharing? Sharing in the sense, the whole idea of distance vector routing is the sharing of information. This is the main place where distance vector routing is different from other routing. What it says, the whole idea of distance vector routing is the sharing of information between neighbors. Although node A doesn't know about node E, this node A doesn't know about node E. Although node A doesn't know about node E, node C does, but this node C does. If at all this node A wants to send some of the information to this node E, what is the possible way? The possible way is A to B, B to E, and the second possible way is A to C and C to E. So now what we are in this scenario, in all of the scenario, we are considering this path. We are considering this path. Why we are considering this path? Because see, the distance between A to B is 5, B to E is 3. In the sense, whole of the thing, what is the total cost? 5 plus 3 is 8. 5 plus 3 is 8. Now when we come to this path, A to C and C to E, what is the distance? 2 plus 4 is 6. Whether 6 is greater or 8 is greater? 8 is greater. So we will take the least path. So that's the reason we are considering this path. So what it says, although node A does not know about node E, node C does, but this node C does. So if node C shares, if this node C shares its routing table with router A or table A, node A can also know about or know how to reach node E. In the sense, I don't know something and you know something, so we will share the information so that we both can know the similar things. In the same way, this router A or this node A does not know anything about this node E. So who will help it? This node C will help to know this node E to node A. So this is what you called as sharing of information. This is what you actually know as sharing of the information. On the other hand, node C, this node C does not know how to reach node D. This node D, it does not know how to reach node D, but node A does. But this node A does. So if node A shares its routing table with node C also know how to reach node D. So this router C is helping router A to reach router E. This router A or node A is helping router C to reach router D or node D. So this is what you call as sharing of the things. Every of the node will share its information with the respective nodes, so that every of the connection is been connected with one another. Like see, if you consider with reference to, if at all this router A wants to communicate with router E, so what is the path that it will take? Either this A to B, B to E, or A to C and C to E. So this is the way. So every of the node will share its information with the respective neighbor's node or neighbor router, so that every of the node or every of the router knows about the respective neighbor nodes connected to it. Okay, every of the table will share its respective node or respective router table with the respective neighbors, so that every of the node knows about its neighbor connections. Understood? This is what we call as sharing of the things. And also, like in distance vector routing, each node share its routing table with its immediate neighbor periodically when there is a change. Now coming towards, like see, when we are sharing things, this thing come into picture. When we are sharing things, it is updating next to it. Like every other time when we are sharing the router table with the respective neighbor nodes, it will be updated. For instance, another router is been connected somewhere over here, and it has been connected to only B, and it is only connected to B. Then this router table will share the information with the respective neighbors, so that that extra node or that extra router that has been added later on can be communicated with other router or other nodes. So that's the reason it says every periodical table, the immediate neighbor is being updated. Every immediate neighbor is being updated with some timestamp or with reference to some time period. So this is what we call as distance vector routing. So what is the idea of distance vector routing? The idea of distance vector routing is initializing the router table in the network, creating a table, then sharing that table with the next neighbor, so that other routers can communicate within the network. And the last one is updating. If at all, if something is added, if at all something is removed, or some router is what you call as with the congestion, or this link is being broken, or something happens, this should have an alternate route, so that others routers work properly. The whole idea of this is for routing purpose, so that for every of the reason when we are routing some of the things, the flow of the packet should be smooth. It should not be stuck anywhere, and it should not stop anywhere. So this is what you call as sharing. So this is what you call as distance vector routing, and this is very important with reference to your examination point of view, and as well as with reference to your career options when you will be going for your career in networks. So this is very important, distance vector routing. Now coming towards the next type of routing, it is called as link state routing. Now what do you mean by link state routing? Link state routing is a routing in which every of the router will take the approximate distance from other routers. It will take the approximate distance from other router, and with reference to that approximation, the shortest path will be taken, or flooding will be done on the network, so that the packet can be received at the receiver end without any congestion. Now what it says, link state routing is based on assumption that although the global knowledge about the topology is not clear, each node has partial knowledge. It knows the state, in the sense type, condition and cost of its links. In other words, the whole topology can be compiled from the partial knowledge of each node. Now what do you mean by this? If at all, if you consider with reference to the previous routing algorithm or routing state, what it does, this routing table will take the information of the network or whole of the nodes which are been connected or interconnected to with it, but this value has the information of this routing table and also with reference to this routing table and this routing table. So this information will be stored globally. Here the information is stored locally so that this particular node can use that information, but here that information will be stored globally so that other networks can also take an advantage of sending the packets in an alternate route. That is what we call as link state routing. Understood? In distance vector routing, the routing table information is stored at local level, whereas in this link state routing it is being stored at global level so that the information can be utilized by other routers or other nodes to pass on the packets and to pass on the information or to pass on the routing table data to the respective receivers end. So what it says, building a routing table, creation of the state of link by each node called the link state packet. Now what it is, like see, this is how it is been created. This is how it is been created. Like overall, if you see, this is node A, B, C, D and E. Now for link state A, what is the value? Like with reference to the distance between A and B is 5. Let me consider, here it is 5, here it is 5. So and what is the distance between A to C? The distance between A to C is 2. So here we have written, like with reference to B we have written 5, with reference to C we have written 2, with reference to A and D the distance between A and D is 3, so we have written 3 and 3. So this creates a link state of A that will be shared among all of these other nodes, all other nodes available within the network, regardless of the topology. What it says, creation of link state of the links by each node called the link state packet. Now what is the second point? Disseminate the LSPs, link state routing or link state packets, to every other router, called flooding, in an efficient and reliable way. Now see, when this state has been occupied, this will flood to all of the connecting things, like this will flood to B, this will flood to C, this will flood to D. So this information of A will be stored in B as well as in C. The information of this router A or node A will be stored within A, B and within C and D. Why? Because this A is even connected to node B, node C and node D. So this will be flooded. This will be flooded to B, this will be flooded to C and this will be flooded to D. Now the next one, what it says, formation of the shortest path tree for each node. Now after getting this table, after sharing every of the information with every of the node, it will take the shortest path. See, always remember, within the network or computer networks, you'll always see for the shortest path with reference to the quality of service and with reference to the reliability of the network. In the sense, if at all we are sending 5 packets and the receiver is receiving only 3 packets, 2 packets are been lost. If at all if you are sending 5 packets, the receiver is receiving 6 packets and also the 5th packet is missing and one of the packet is been doubled. This is also not the efficient way. So it is not mandatory to take the shortest path, but it is been recommended to take the shortest path so that the information or the packets that are been passing through the network or passing through the router can reach efficiently and effectively. Now, what is the third, what is the third point? Formation of shortest path tree for each node. The fourth point is calculation of routing table based on the shortest path tree. Now, after designing or after making a tree, then you will decide the shortest path. Why? Because every of the table has the shortest route information with reference to other routers. So this will help router 1 to communicate with router D, C, B and E. And it also will know the shortest path to reach other routers with reference to including the topology that is being used. So this is what we call as link state routing. So if I say this in a shorter way, it is something like you analyze the graph, you collected the information, and later on you decided the shortest path after getting the information from every of the link node. This is what we call as link state routing. Now, coming towards the next concept, that it is congestion control algorithm. Now, till now, what are the things that we have studied is all about routing, sending the packets from sender to receiver, receiving the packets from sender, or XYZ type of the routing algorithms, or XYZ other things. If at all, there is something called as congestion. What do you mean by congestion? Congestion means there is a 6-lane road or there is a 3-lane road and 4 vehicle wants to move on that 3-lane vehicle. Is it possible? No, it's not possible. If at all there is 3-lane road, but there is a congestion wherein some accident had happened in front of the first car, or there is some natural disasters happened on the road, so the packets cannot move or the cars cannot move on that track. So that is what you called as congestion. Or in another way, if I want to say, like when you are standing outside the examination hall and you are told to come inside the hall, then how at the bulk when you come into the class, that is what we call as congestion. Like the path is there and the way is there, but as the people are coming at one instance, it will cause a congestion. Okay, it is something like, if you see the shape of a bottle, it will be something like it will be broader at the below and narrower at up, or else it will be broader at the below base of the bottle and it will be narrower to the neck of the bottle. This will create congestion. Or something like a 4-lane road is being converted into, or it is being converged into a 2-lane road. So this will create a congestion. Now, in the same way, when in a network, when data or when information is being flowing, or when the sender is sending the information from one side to another to the receiver side, there might be a chances wherein many of the people are trying to access the same lane. This will create a congestion and this will reduce the service, and this will reduce the the quality of service with reference to the router services. Now see, if you observe this graph, and this graph, this says like this is the capacity of the network and this is the way you are sending the information, or the desirable response or the desirable things is this, and this is the ideal way. Like if at all how can I say is this, like it is something like there is a traffic. Like when you consider the traffic at morning 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, the traffic will be more, and when we consider the traffic from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, the traffic will be comparatively less, and when we compare like from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, the traffic will be again more. But because in the time span of 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, the people will start for their offices, the people will start for their business, the people will start for their work, the people will start for their schools, the people will start for their colleges. But after 11 o'clock, everyone will be there in the office, so there will not be much movement on the road with reference to the traffic. Whereas if you consider after 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, again the people who are in the offices will come out of their offices and will be on the road. So this will create a traffic congestion. In the same way, this is a desirable thing. Like, what is the desirable thing? If you consider 10 people are coming in the evening, 2 people are coming in the noon, and again 4 people are coming at the afternoon, this whole of the things will create a sum. For instance, the sum is 10. In 10 hours, 10 people are coming. But what is the average? The average is 1. It means every 1 hour, 1 people is coming. But that's not the case. In morning, 1 hour only 4 people are coming. In next hour, 1 people is coming. And again, in the next 4 hours, again 4 people are coming. It means it is creating some traffic congestion. It is creating some traffic congestion. So that is what you call as a congestion. Now, this is the capacity of the network. This indicates the capacity of the network. This indicates the flow of the traffic. This indicates the flow of the traffic, and after coming to this should be stable. This should be stable. And if at all, if there is a lot of traffic, then this is what we call as congestion collapse. Congestion collapse in the sense, if at all, like see, if there is a moving traffic and if at all there is a what we call as a stop, like if the traffic is been stopped and there is a moving traffic, which is beneficial. Moving traffic is beneficial. Why? Because at least they are moving. At least they are moving in a direction. But if at all there is an accident or some of the thing has happened in front of the road, the traffic cannot be moved until and unless that is being resolved. So in the same way, if at all the load on the router is been increasingly rapidly, the router cannot give its services to which it is been designed. Why? Because the more is the packets, the more services it should give. So it will lose its services. So that is what we call as congestion control. Sorry, this is what we call as congestion, not control. This is what we call as congestion. Now, what are the techniques if at all something is going to happen like this, or there is a chance, what can happen? For instance, like see, with reference to, as like when the traffic is moving in the morning, the policemen or the what we call as the officers will take some precautionary measure to avoid the traffic congestion, What they will do, they will put some of the signals, they will put extra policemen over there, or they will put some extra officers, or they will introduce something like even odd, or something like only cars can be used, only this lane is for bikes. Something can be done so that to avoid congestion on the road. In the same way, in the network also there will be some mechanism to control the congestion. So what are the congestion control algorithms we are going to see. But before that, we'll see too many packets present in a part of the network causes packet delay and loss that degrades the performance. This situation is called as congestion. The network and transport layers share the responsibility for handling congestion. Since the congestion occurs within the network, it is the network layer that directly experiences it and must ultimately determine what to do with the excess packets. So now we will see what actually will happen. Now what factor will lead to congestion? 3 or 4 input lines and only one output line queue up in build. Like for an instance, there is only one clerk and there are 7 lanes of people coming simultaneously. This will create congestion. If at all there are 5 lanes and 5 people, the flow will be efficient. If there are 2 lanes, 1 person, then also the output will be very much efficient. If at all there are 7 lanes and only one outcome, then it will create congestion. If there is insufficient memory to hold all of them, packet will be lost. If at all my capacity is to hold 2 things at one instance, if at all if you give me third thing to hold, then it is very difficult to hold that third thing. it is very difficult to hold that third thing. I may hold that thing or I may not hold the thing, but in the least case I may not hold the thing. So that is the reason. In the same way, in a network, if at all the network is being overloaded with its capacity, there is a chance that it might lose that packet. And the third one is like adding infinite memory congestion get worse, because by the time packets gets to the front of the queue, the timeout and duplicates have been sent. Now what do you mean by this? This is very simple. What actually it means is like, there is a lane, there is one outcome lane, and to that many in lanes are being added. And what it does, like, that can process 5 packets at one instance, and it is been given 8 packets per instance. So the 3 packets will be overloaded. This will be delayed. After the first packet, the second packet will be done. After the second, the third will be done. If it is been overloaded, it will do first, then it will go for 4th, then it will go for 6th, then it will go for 7th, and later on it will come into 2 and 3, then 4 and 5. So in this way the things will happen. This may lead to losing of the packets, or this may lead to duplication of packets. Why? So because the first packet is been received, the second packet is not received, the third packet is not received, but the fourth packet is been received. So what it will do, it will again request for the second packet, and the later on session, after the 7th packet is been executed, again the second packet is been executed. So the second packet will go, again the request for the second packet will again go to the request. So this will create duplication. Now note the second point, slow processor or router can cause congestion. This is obvious. A slow processor performs the bookkeeping task very slow. Queue will build up. This is obvious, like if you are working slow or if your performance is less, it will form a queue. Like in the same way, like if you are, for an instance, if I tell you, you went to a faculty and you want to take the signature on your record book. By the time you reach the professor's room, you have seen there are 10 people standing over there. So what you will do, you will stand on the 11th position. If at all the professor is signing on the records very efficient, like very quickly, then your chances of getting your record book signed within some small amount of time is greater. But if the professor is signing that record very slow, then your chance of getting your record signed within the time stamp will be very less. So that is what you call as like low bandwidth lines can cause congestions. What is the next thing? This problem will persist until all components are in balance. Like this will occur again and again. So that will create a lot of congestion, and this might lead to the failure of the router. Also. Now coming to the general principle for congestion control. There are two things. The first one is open loop and the second one is closed loop. What do you mean by open loop? Open loop will avoid the congestion by stating enough is enough, more people cannot be called within the room. In the sense, if at all there is an auditorium which has a capacity of only 100 people, if at all 150 people have come, it will allow only first 50 people, if at all there is a capacity of 100 people within a seminar hall, if at all 150 people are coming, you will be set to allow only 99 people. For 100 people, you will say the seat is been over, there is no more capacity. You can wait outside. After this session has been completed, you will be called inside the hall. This is what we call as open loop type of things, which will avoid congestion. The second type of thing is like closed loop type of congestion control principle, in which it will delete the people. For instance, there is a capacity of only 100 people allowed inside the hall. You will say that only first 100 people will be allowed inside the hall. Only first 100 people will be allowed inside the auditorium hall or the seminar hall. This statement says closed loop type of congestion control things. So there is a difference, open loop and closed loop. Open loop will avoid, whereas closed loop will delete. Avoidance and deletion. That is the difference between open loop and closed loop type of congestion control principles. So I repeat, open loop is a type of principle of congestion control in which the loop will avoid the packets to enter into the network when it comes to what you call as finishing line, when it comes to more than the capacity of the network or more than the capacity of the router. Whereas in closed loop, it will delete the additional packets which are coming. It will delete the additional packets which are coming into the network so that it may not cause the congestion. It may not cause the congestion. This is what you call as the principles of congestion control algorithm or congestion control things. Now we'll see two major concepts with reference to traffic shaping. Now what do you mean by traffic shaping? As I have told you, congestion is happening due to the main reason of traffic. Congestion is happening due to the main reason of traffic. If at all if you are able to shape the traffic, if at all if you are able to shape the traffic in an efficient way, the chances of getting congestion will be very less. We can, if at all if you are able to maintain the traffic, then we are able to maintain the shape of the traffic so that the congestion cannot happen. The congestion should not happen. What it says, another method of congestion control is to shape the traffic before it enters the network. Traffic shaping controls the rate at which the packets are sent, not how many used in ATM and integrated service network. For instance, if I give you an example of rate per sinks, like I can handle only 5 people. Like if at all, like the main example how I can give is like the Viva. Like when we are taking the Viva, the external will come and the external will ask you to come only 1 at a person, 2 at a person, or 3 at a person. It means he is shaping the traffic. He is shaping the traffic in such a way only limited amount of people can come into the room to give the Viva. Only limited amount of people can come in to give the Viva. Whereas like the examiner can call only 1 person at a time, 2 person at a time, 3 person at a time, 4 person at a time. But he cannot call all of the people at a time to take the Viva. Okay, this is what you call as traffic shaping. This is what you call as traffic shaping. What is the third point which it says? At connection setup time, the sender and carrier negotiate a traffic pattern shape. Two connection traffic shaping algorithms are these two algorithms, or these two are very important and very easy to understand, and this might be asked in your final year examination, and also this is very important with reference to your academics. So what is the first one? Leaky bucket and token bucket. Now what do you mean by leaky bucket? Leaky bucket in the sense, before going to the leaky bucket, I'll tell you a small example. There is a bucket, into that there is a hole at the bottom. There is a bucket and there is a hole at the bottom. So what the mechanism here, what it has been told over is like whatever the water that you pour into that bucket, the outcome of that water will always remain the same. The outcome of that water will always remain the same. In the sense, if at all if you are putting 1 mug at a time, or 1 jug at a time, 1 drum at a time, or 1 gallon at a time, what is the outcome of that bucket? The outcome of that bucket will always be constant. The outcome of that bucket will always be constant. That is the concept of leaky bucket. Now coming towards the academics, what actually this leaky bucket algorithm is all about. Leaky bucket algorithm states the outcome of the traffic, whatever the input that it has, it will be there, but it is only dependent on the outcome. Outcome in the sense, the outcoming of the packets that are coming, that should be constant for every delta time. For every delta time, the outcome of that packet should be constant. The outcome of that packet should always be constant. So what it says, the leaky bucket algorithm is used to control rate in a network. It is implemented as a single server queue with constant service time. If the bucket or buffer overflows, then the packets are discarded. Now, there is a bucket, there is a hole in that. What are the things that you are pouring into that? with a constant rate the water is flowing from the bottom. If at all there comes a time wherein the bucket is full, and you are pouring more water. So what will happen? The more water that you are pouring will get discarded. Discarded in the sense that will not be considered, that will be considered on later on things. In the same way, if at all there is a queue of buckets, or there is a queue of packets that are being transferred to the network, if at all the capacity of that queue is 100, only 100 bits of data will be taken, or 100 score of data will be taken. 101 or 102 or 103 data will not be taken. But after the completion of the execution within the buffer, new packets will be added for every delta time, for every constant time. That is what we call as the concept of leaky bucket algorithm. For instance, let's see, there is a bucket, you are pouring the water. After 5 seconds the bucket is full. For the 6th second we can fill the bucket, but on the 5th second you cannot overflow the bucket. But on the 6th second you can again fill the bucket, because it is constantly flowing from the bottom. It means something is going out of that bucket, so that new things can be added. In the same way, when it comes to the queue, there will be size of the queue. When the queue is full, no other additional packets of data will be allowed into that queue. No other additional data or packets will be allowed into the queue. But after some time interval, or after some delta time, that bucket will be allowed to pour more water into it, or more packets can be allowed within that network. This concept is called as leaky bucket. Now coming towards, like, what leaky bucket is all about. The leaky bucket enforces constant output rate, average rate, regardless of the burstiness of the input. Does nothing when input is idle. Like when there is no input, there will be no output. When there is no input, there will be no output. And if at all the input rate and output rate is constant, then there will be no congestion. Like it takes 5 seconds to fill the bucket, and it takes 3 seconds to empty the bucket. The bucket rate or the filling of the bucket will remain constant. So go to second point. The host inject one packet per clock tick onto the network. The result is an uniform flow of packets, smoothing out burst and reducing congestion. Like I have told you, the rate of incoming and the rate of outgoing is same, then there will be no congestion within the network. What is the next point? It says when the packets are the same size as in ATM cell, one packet per tick is okay. For a variable like this, a small example which indicates the bytes and bit size of the data, in which if at all this amount of data is coming into it, and what is the outcome. What it says, for an example, 1024 bytes per tick will allow 1024 packets, or 2 512 bytes of packet and 4 256 bytes of packets per tick. In the sense, the buffer size is 1024, it will allow 1024 packet, 2 512 packets, 4 256 packets. Okay, this is what we call as a leaky bucket algorithm. This is the concept of leaky bucket algorithm. Now the next one is token bucket algorithm. What do you mean by token bucket algorithm? In token bucket algorithm, it will allow only limited amount of inputs, and it will it will allow only limited amount of input in chunks. In a sense, 3 people at a time, 4 people at a time, 5 people at a time, 10 people at a time. Then this type of congestion control is called as token bucket algorithm. Now what it says, in contrast with leaking bucket, the token bucket algorithm allows the output rate to vary depending on the size of the burst. Like in leaking bucket, the outcome was constant. But whereas in token bucket, the input is constant. How it has been constant? It will take 3 inputs, 4 inputs, 5 inputs, 10 inputs. In this way, it will take the input. In token bucket algorithm, the bucket holds the token to transmit the packet. The host must capture and destroy one token. In the sense, it will take only limited amount of token inside and it will process. It will take limited amount of tokens inside and it will process. Tokens are generated by a clock at the rate of 1 token per every delta second. Ideal hosts can capture and save up tokens up to maximum size of bucket in order to send larger burst size. See, if you observe this is what you call as a token bucket algorithm. This is a host, and this is what you call as a token collector or a bucket, in which every token, one token is added for the bucket. One token is added to the bucket every delta second. These are the queue, and like see the host computer and the network, after like it process, like there were 3 inputs, let's process 3 output for every other token seconds. So this is the major difference between token bucket and leaky bucket type of congestion algorithm. Now coming towards the differences between token bucket and leaky bucket type of algorithms. Leaking bucket discards the packets, token bucket does not. Leaky bucket, like as it overflows, it will discard, whereas in token bucket it will not discard, it will hold it, because as the input is constant, as the input that is coming, it is constant, so it will not discard the packets. So with reference to leaking bucket discards the packets, token bucket does not. Token bucket discards the token. Token bucket discards the token. With token bucket, a packet can only be transferred or transmitted if there are enough token to cover its length in byte. Whereas the leaking bucket packets at an average rate, like leaking bucket sends the packet at an average rate, token bucket allow for large bursts to be sent faster by speeding up the output. Now what is the last point? Token bucket allows saving up tokens permissions to send large bursts. Leaking bucket does not allow saving. So this is the major difference between leaking bucket and token bucket type of algorithm. This is to know a major difference, but this might be, or this can be asked for 2 marks type of questions, differences between leaking bucket and token bucket. So that's all from my side for this unit. I hope you understand the basic concepts of what computer network is all about, the different types of what you call as network layers of OSI, ISO, TCP/IP model, then what do you mean by routing algorithms and congestion control things with reference to leaking bucket and token bucket algorithm. So that's all for now. I hope you understood the maximum part of it. If at all, if you have any doubt, let me know, and you can email me on my email address with reference to any of the questions to be asked. I soon will conduct a question answer session with reference to I will conduct a question answer session with reference to the first unit, and I will share the Zoom link along with you so that we can have an interactive session to clear the doubts. That's all from my side. I hope you understood. All the best for the day and rest of your life. Thank you. Have a great day. See you in the next class. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.